All right. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, everything is coming through loud and clear on here. Um, and we're going to continue kind of where we left off last week. And we'll talk a little bit about clarinets today. But I guess when we start out, I have some toys to play with here, and so yeah, go ahead and say hey, and well, yeah, yes, I do play bassoon. I'm not sure about the boy part. I'm nearly 40. But yeah, so hopefully you guys liked the live stream with Mikey on Sunday. If you guys were able to catch that, it was a blast having him here. Hey Jared, hey Tom. Exhausting. I got him to the airport early Tuesday morning, and I basically slept the rest of the day. So yeah, but we got a lot done. Had a is it possible to do a band nerd hangout about the high pitched and auxiliary clarinets? Oh yes, I've got them here. So yeah, that's going to be the bulk of today. Hello Tony. Yeah, the live stream master was pretty awesome. And actually, what I'm going to do is I am editing that down, and I'm going to have it be like a 20-minute video. Where I talk about the history and the usage, so in the All About series. So I'm in the process of editing that down. Turns out there's about good 11 minutes of playing and demonstrating the different tone colors between the different instruments. So yeah, too bad he couldn't bring the other oboes. Yeah, and it just would have been a lot to carry. Particularly, the only thing he needed was the bass, because he was doing some work here with the bass. Okay, looks like for whatever reason it says that I am unable to connect to chat, which means that lovely. Okay. So it means that I can't see anything. Okay, so yeah, all right. Nice, I started practicing my E flat before the stream started. I still have it with me now. Good evening, sweeter than anything. Yeah, look at all those clarinets. Well, yeah, so we're not going to talk about clarinets at first. And actually, they're not all clarinets. I've only got like 4 clarinets here. That's actually pretty standard. But I want to revisit kind of what we talked about a couple weeks ago with the flutes. And because while Mikey was here, I took him to see my friend David, who owns David's Instrument Repair in Carrollton, Texas. And he is another weird instrument aficionado who has just an amazing collection of instruments. And I've got it worked out with him that every few weeks I'm going to be able to borrow one or two. Hi, Joe Carter. So what we've got today is, well, let's kind of just talk about what I've got. If you have seen my Instagram feed, you will have seen the picture I posted yesterday or the day before. Oh, thank you, Brad. You are awesome as always. But behold. I'm hoping that... Yeah, okay, it's just my computer. Wait, oh... Video stalling, yeah, no, it's... Uh, okay, yeah. I think we're. Let me know. Let me know if you're able to follow the stream. It's well, I don't think it's on your end, sweet. Well, it's weird. My computer is fine. My computer is stalled. My phone is fine. Okay, so there's something. Okay, so there's something going on YouTube because the phone stream, yeah, is fine, but and I'm not going to restart this one. Let me know if everybody else is good. Actually, I'm going to do one thing real quick. This will take the stream down for just a second. Hold on, guys. Okay, so well, this is weird. So I'm videoing through the computer that's going into the YouTube on the computer. It is gonna, and then I've got to read everything on the phone. Okay, but anyway, as I was saying, okay, as I was saying, I have some flutes here, and I have 5 sizes of flute. Now, 3 of these sizes are mine. So yeah, this is my C flute, my C piccolo, and my D flat piccolo. But you'll notice that in between are 2 more. And I have with me an E flat flute and a G treble flute. Ha ha ha. And I have been wanting to experiment with these bad boys for quite a while. And so we will talk a little bit about them for a little bit because I've got them here. So I think the first one is, we'll just kind of look at the E flat flute in comparison to the C flute. So as you can see, it's quite a bit shorter. And of course it's going to be a minor third higher. It plays very much like the C flute does. So what I'll do is on C flute, I've got Debussy Syrinx. And by the way, I am a really piss poor clarinet or flute player. So please forgive my atrocious flute playing. But I'll play the first couple lines of Syrinx on the C. Then I'll do the same thing on the E flat. Okay, so that's on the C flute. So let's go ahead and go to the E flat flute, which is everything going to be just a minor third higher. Let's see if I can reset my embouchure here. So that's the E flat flute. It's a little bit more brittle in sound. Let me know if you guys are still saying this, because it looks like on my end comments have stopped, but it just could be. Yeah, it sounds kind of like a fife. Well, guess what's going to sound even more like a fife? Let's go to the G treble. Now, here's the thing with the G treble. This is not a great instrument. This is a Guo G treble. And this happens to be a, let me make sure on this. It is a, yeah, this is a Gemeinhardt E flat. And so this is actually a pretty good student model E flat. Of course, all E flat flutes really have been student models. The Guo G treble here is, again, smaller, and I do not like the ergonomics on it, particularly on the G sharp key here. It's just not in a good position for my big hands. But I'm going to try and play the same thing on here. And yeah, that's the G treble. Now, just for grins, I'll do it on the piccolo. This may be really bad. All right. So that's I'm not going to play on the D flat piccolo because that's just not working very well. Where is the market for student E flat flutes? I've never heard of a school program using them. Well, the market was in the 1940s and 1950s. They have not been manufactured in large numbers probably since the 70s. I remember early on in my band career that you could still get an Emerson E flat or an Emerson G treble from music dealers to about 2000. Do I plan on getting an alto flute? I would love to be able to have the money to be able to buy these instruments. Obviously, the G and the E flat are not mine. They are on loan for a while. So I can experiment with them. Thankfully, the owner is an instrument nerd like we all are, and he wants to see composers start using them as well. So, but yeah, so I like the tone of the treble. It reaches up there without being as striking as a piccolo. Yes, and if I were a better player and this were a better instrument, it would work better. One of the problems with this instrument are the pads. They are all foam pads. And all the keywork on here is plastic. So if the keywork on here goes out of adjustment, I don't know that there's a way that you can fix it. This is not a very repairable instrument. Which is a major drawback. And in fact, this instrument has had some damage that happened before me, where the plastic casing on the trill rod came off, and you can see the exposed metal underneath. So there is metal underneath the plastic, but by and large, You know, this instrument could stand some substantial improvement. But what I'll do now is I will just play 2-octave C scale on each of the instruments. Now on the E flat. And now on the G. So there is where those foam pads really are a detriment. The instrument does not seal well down to that low C. The plastic low C natural key on my tenor recorder got bent, and I have no idea how to fix it. That's a Jared question there, but it's probably going to involve heat. Sounds like it's in A flat. So let's see. No, it's in G. Yep, that's. Yeah, I will be doing some more experimenting with those. If you've got any questions on it, though, feel free to ask. Like I said, I'll have them here probably about 2 weeks or so. Yeah, the G. Well, yeah. So I've got it pushed all the way in. I can pull it out quite a bit. Yeah, and it's so leaky down there. Yeah, and replacement parts better. But yeah, that could just be, the sharpness could just be my playing. It is not a comfortable instrument for me to play. I don't particularly like doing the very small stuff, but it's fascinating a little bit. Let me know if you want me to try and play anything on them. Mike could do one of the excerpts out of. Well, let me see if I can do an excerpt out of one of my symphonies 2 or 3. Let's see. Here's a solo on the E flat flute. No, that's not on the E flat flute at all. So, yeah, let me do a quick little solo from Symphony 3 for the E-flat flute. And this is just going to be a nice little half-note solo in the mid to upper range. The high note here will be a high F. Sorry, gotta stand up, getting the cramp. Okay. Ah! that was really particularly terrible. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll be reviewing the Guo. I will do an individual video on each of these instruments that will probably come out in the next couple weeks. Yeah, I don't think Guo has made an E flat. They've made a piccolo, they've made a G treble, they've made a C, they make their tenor flute, which they really do call a tenor flute. And they've just recently come out with alto flutes, which, if I remember correctly, actually go down to like A, written A, which would sound an F. Or maybe it's an A flat they're going down to. I can't remember, but they have a major extension on them. But anyway, that is the flutes. If you don't have any more questions on those, we'll kind of set those aside. Expect videos on them at some point. And from last week, we talked about the clarinets. And so we're going to finish up talking the upper end of the spectrum. So I've got my A, B flat, C, and E flat here, and I've got the mouthpiece in the other room. What notes do flutes normally go down to without an extension? Depends on the flute. So a C flute, student models go down to C. All professional models will typically go down to a B natural. All piccolos will go down to a D, except for some very rare, some low C or even a low B piccolo. Where did I see that they were making an alto? It was on the Low Flutes Facebook group. Somebody posted a picture of one, so it was definitely legit. It's a, I think they may still be in development on it, but it's really close to being released. All altos go down to written C. Some basses are split between C and B, and most contrabasses go down to B. Excuse me, tenors and basses. So, high clarinets. So within the wind band, this instrument right here, the B flat clarinet, is kind of like the bread and butter, the standard clarinet that everybody sees, everybody knows, and you don't deviate from this too often. It's kind of your violin section. Though I really don't like that analogy that the B flat clarinet equals your violin section, because it sounds nothing like violins. It doesn't really have the same kind of tone quality, the same kind of flexibility. Of course, for orchestral playing, you have to have both the B flat and the A, though the A is almost unheard of in wind band literature, which is a shame because most professionals will have an A. Interesting, I'm just kind of noticing the weight difference between the two and how much heavier my A is than my B flat. And that's because the hard rubber here is much more dense than the wood. So this is light. In fact, it's lighter than the C. Here's a flute topic. Earlier this year, I saw a player who does a lot of soundtrack work with some 3D printed mouthpiece for getting oblique flute, shakuhachi, etc. sounds on a concert. Yeah, that's there's an eBay seller in Armenia making lead pipes like that, but it seemed to be gone. I think I know what you're talking about. Basically, just different kinds of head joints for the flute, and those are out there. I think I may even know who you're talking about. I might even be Facebook friends with them. Do plastic A clarinets exist? Boom! Well, okay, it's not plastic, it's hard rubber. But, yeah, I'm holding one right here in my hand. And it's not a bad instrument. I quite like it. It plays pretty well. I have had no complaints, but then again, I've had really no reason to take it out of the house. A clarinets and clarinets and A, but same thing. So this gets to an interesting point in that I always put the note name first. So it's a B flat clarinet, an A clarinet, a C clarinet, not clarinet in A, clarinet in B flat, clarinet in C, because that just adds an extra word that you don't need. Yes, I know the eBay seller. I don't know that particular flute player. But those kind of things are not unheard of. So anyway, in wind band, of course, we've got massive section of typically 3 parts on the B flat clarinet. 1, 2, and 3. Third clarinet is one of those interesting things. So think of it this way: first clarinets are your violins, second clarinets are your violins too, third clarinets are your violas, which is kind of why I like having the alto clarinet there, so that there is some kind of distinction between first, second, and third. But I don't think of clarinets that way when I'm writing my own music. I think of them by basically they're clarinets, and I'm using them for their clarinet tone quality. So I'm not thinking of them in this, a lot of times, mass section. I'm thinking of individual soloistic players. And it can basically that I'm write for clarinets in the wind band just exactly as I would write for clarinets in an orchestra. To that effect, in my symphonies, I have really begun to really exploit the use of the C clarinet, which I really do love the sound of. It was interesting when Mikey was here before we did the video. He was playing through all the clarinets because he does all the woodwinds except bassoon, and just being able to sit across the room from him and hear the instrument being played while I'm not playing it, really kind of eye-opening, and I could really hear the tonal difference. And I know on some of the videos I've done, you can't hear the tonal difference too well, just because the microphone that I'd been using was not ideal for picking those up. But I do have the microphone set up tonight. The mouthpiece is in the other room, so give me 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, and I'll be right back with my clarinet mouthpiece. Alright, I hope I didn't lose anybody while I was gone, but okay, so I've got my clarinet mouthpiece here, and for tonal quality, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the opening of the second movement of the Mozart Concerto. I will try and play this as musically as possible. Clarinet is just so difficult to control. Alright, now I'm going to do the same thing on the B flat clarinet. I'm going to try and actually play the same sounding pitches. Okay, so yeah, you could. Let me just play the first three notes. Now I'm going to switch that over to the A. And to me, I hear a very marked difference in the tone quality just playing the same pitches. I think you said once that the C clarinet feels closer to the E flat than the B flat. Yes. Yeah, so the C clarinet is probably closer timbrally to the E flat. It's kind of your midway point. So what I'm going to do now, then, of course, is play this on the C clarinet. Da. And I don't know about you, but that just feels so incredibly bright. Now I'm going to go back to the A clarinet, play the exact same sounding notes. And this just feels veiled, it feels darker, a little bit more melancholy, whereas the C clarinet here is just bright, perky, and happy. And of course, well, let's just see what happens. So let's see, the opening note is, let's see, and that is so much brighter on the E flat. I mean, it's just like night and day. This is just cuts through. So that should be kind of, and I'm hoping that you guys can pick up on a tone color difference, because to me, playing them, there is a very apparent difference. So between the A to the B flat, to the C, to the E flat. Yeah, so the sound difference is really coming through, and they are very different in tone quality from one another. Yeah. And each one has their own kind of individual characteristics. Now, some of that could be differences between the instruments. Are E-flat clarinets common enough to write in regular high school level band music? Depends on the high school. Here in Texas, I wouldn't have a problem doing it. If you are in some other part of the world, perhaps not. And Tony, I don't know exactly where you're located. It would really just depend on your high school tradition there. The E-flat is just so focused. Yeah, and particularly the notes that I have to play on that are also really just not good notes on the instrument. I mean, the first note, instead of playing a C, I'm playing an F sharp. And everything... Kansas. Kansas, I would write an E-flat clarinet part. Yeah, I mean, here in the middle of the U.S., the wind band tradition is strongest throughout the Midwest, the middle of the United States. And I think it's probably least strong on the West Coast, just from my research. But yeah, I if you're writing for a top level band, E-flat clarinet is absolutely fine. And there's so much wind band music that calls for E-flat clarinet that a lot of bands just kind of have to have it. I mean, I could not imagine you doing a whole suite in E-flat, whole suite in F, whole Hammersmith without an E-flat. In fact, you kind of need two of them. Because at least the whole suite in E-flat and Hammersmith both have important Divisi parts for the E-flat clarinet. So Holst was imagining 2 E-flats and 4 or more B-flats. No altos, no basses. Because they just weren't used then. That's better, yeah. Just had to do some adjustment on the reed there. Yeah, so E-flat clarinet. There was a time when the E-flat clarinet was kind of given up on, and that people didn't want to teach it, they didn't want to write for it. In fact, there was a movement throughout the first half of the 20th century said, oh, just get rid of the E-flat clarinet and replace it with the E-flat flute. Why not? Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons that the E-flat flute was seen in some band music. Band directors would use this instrument to replace the E-flat clarinet part. That said, I have scoured the literature for E-flat flute parts, and there are very, very few, and all the pieces that I've found are like top tier, like grade 6 or beyond. Why aren't E-flat clarinets used on the marching field, similarly to how most flutes play piccolo? There are some universities that will do that. Partly because E-flat clarinet is a much, much more difficult instrument. Most instruments will be university owned. They're not expected to be owned by the student, whereas a student flute player will typically own their own piccolo. So, yeah, but you know, the thing is, I really would not want the sound of like a bunch of E-flat clarinets. I think some of the bigger Midwest bands may do that. I had a good friend who worked pretty closely with the Ohio State University Marching Band, and they would use them, but they'd also have a section of like 12 E-flat cornets, which is really unusual. So that's kind of interesting there. Now, of course, in the wind band, the only two of these that we really ever see are the E-flat and the B-flat. And the C and the A are more orchestral. That said, I think that at least the C clarinet could be a viable option for wind bands. So E-flat clarinet retains its role. C clarinet takes over first clarinet, and then B-flat clarinet takes over second clarinet. And you've now got more tone colors. There are some earlier wind band pieces Mozart, Mendelssohn, that call for the C clarinet over the B flat. In fact, I think all of Mendelssohn's band works and all of Beethoven's band works call for the C clarinet. Yeah, my university marches some E flat trumpets. Yeah, so that's again a much more of a Midwest thing. I'm not sure if that is done here in Texas often, but definitely in the Midwest, E flat trumpets are used in the marching field. And there's a couple that still do E flat cornets. So I've got the 4 high clarinets here. These are the 4 that you will typically see. Now there are, depending on how you count, a couple more, at least 2, 3, 4 more that are extant. So the B flat and A form a pair, half a step off. The E flat clarinet has a sister to it, and it's the D clarinet. It is probably the rarest of the commonly found orchestral clarinets. Half a step bigger, so directly in between these two, the E flat and the C. I know of no band literature that calls for it. They are only made now in the Böhm, the French system. They're only made now by Buffet, and Steve Fox has made one. Selmer has stopped making them. Now you'll find more makers in the German system, but we don't use that here in the United States very often. Historically, there was one size smaller than the E flat in F. Now the F clarinet is a really kind of an interesting story, and one of these days I will probably do a whole video on the high F clarinet. Here's basically some of the history of it, and it has to do with the military bands in France, and well, we'll just say in France, the instrument used was the E flat in the military bands, and in Germany and Austria, so east of the Rhine, they use the F. So all the military stuff in France was using E flat. All the military stuff in Germany and Austria was using F. Now this is all right around the same time, around 1800 to about 1820. So the race is kind of on to see who gets to use one of these in the orchestra first. And of course, the first person to do that is Hector Berlioz in Symphonie Fantastique. And he brings in the E flat clarinet because that was the high clarinet in France. And the Germans and the Austrians is like, okay, yeah, okay, E flat clarinet, that's what's getting used there. And the little high F clarinet that was being used in all the Austrian and German military bands just kind of got forgotten. So we see the high F clarinet in works of Beethoven and works of Mendelssohn. And there might be some others. In my opinion, means nothing, but I'm convinced that clarinets especially need timbre distinction between different parts. It tends towards mud with the imbalance between B flat soprano in most bands I play in. It depends on the piece. It's all going to be literature and music dependent. Always, the tone colors always have to serve the music. So it's a case-by-case basis, and particularly you have to look at what the composer wanted. Anyway, back to the little high F clarinet. So Beethoven and Mendelssohn are using this, and they never adopt it into the orchestra. But the French are saying, okay, yeah, we'll take this instrument into the orchestra. Come on. And so you start seeing more E flat clarinets going into the French literature. Berlioz writes his textbook on instrumentation and says, this is what we're using. We're using the E flat clarinet. And then, of course, the Germans and Austrians read this and said, okay, yeah, we're going to use the E flat clarinet too. And it gets adopted through there. That little F goes away. Now, interestingly, for me, I would love to see a high F clarinet made in this system. And it probably wouldn't be too terribly difficult to make one. And you could easily 3D print a body and then get one of these cheap Chinese ones. Perhaps even use the same barrel and same bell and use the same keywork, just cut it down a little bit, and lo and behold, if you use the right proportions, Jared, hint, 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 you could make a high F clarinet using all the parts from this. That would be kind of experimental, but for stuff like that, it would be interesting. And in fact, one of the little interesting things about the little high F clarinet is while doing literature research for volume 2 of my book, I came across this phenomenal passage in one of Beethoven's band pieces. And yes, when I say Beethoven wrote band pieces, he really did write some band pieces. And one of the passages for the high F clarinet takes it all the way up to a written A, way above the staff, which would be literally the highest note written within the standard practice period for any size of clarinet. I've tried, couldn't get keys to fit. Try harder. Please. But yeah, so Beethoven's writing all the way up to a high A on the F clarinet, which would be a high B on here. And I have seen one high B in the literature for E flat clarinet, and that's one weird, funky passage in Heffernan O'Brien's Gothic Symphony, which would be completely hidden in the massive texture. Although I use PVC. Well, yeah. You're going to probably need something a little better than PVC there. You got to have much higher tolerances on that tiny instrument. Now, of course, if we go up the scale, there are two more. So the smallest one is, of course, the A-flat clarinet. And I have a whole video on that on my channel. The A-flat clarinet is really, really tiny. Jared's played one. I've played one. Surprisingly, when I played it, it's a very sweet sounding instrument. That said, the intonation on them is really, really bad unless you have an absolutely phenomenal instrument. I have a high-pitched buffet that plays an E natural, though. Does it? Or is it just really high pitch? It's kind of like I've got a friend who's got a really high-pitched C clarinet and says it's a C-sharp clarinet. But anyway, so the high A-flat clarinet, of course, has its pair in a G clarinet. So just like the B-flat and the A, and the E-flat and the D, we get the A-flat and the G. The G clarinet is interesting in that I could find in my deep dive into the literature, one piece in orchestral opera wind band literature called for the high G clarinet, and that's in one of the band parts in Verdi's Aida. I'm sorry, not Aida. La Traviata. And so it's there as well as an A-flat clarinet. Could you make a shorter barrel for it to play an F? No. So somebody commented on my channel, and it's somebody who just comments randomly and kind of incessantly, and I'm not sure why. I kind of feel almost stalked. But no, you cannot make the barrel shorter. Because you have to literally make every proportion between every tone hole 16% smaller than it is here. So you'd measure the distance between this hole, and whatever the distance between those two is, you have to make that 16.67% smaller. The O'Brien Premier Clarinet. Is it, Jared, is that like a student model? Like a keyless instrument, I'm thinking. But at the high end, the A flat clarinet, particularly in continental European wind bands, had some prominence in Italy. Still is used in Italy. It's really the only country where it's still manufactured. Orsi and Ripamonti both still make it. Spain used it for a while. Austria used it throughout at least the late 1800s. I don't know how late into the 20th century they used it. Most of the Austrian wind band stuff I've seen from the 20th century does not have it. I know that there's still a few German bands that will use it, but it's pretty limited there. Yeah, it had 6 keys. Yeah, so it's a student model instrument. Sounds about right. Anything higher than the A flat clarinet is kind of a moot point because it just is too small. Human hands can only crunch so much, including the ring keys from a Böhm system instrument. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think we've completely covered all the clarinets from the highest to the lowest. So I'll just be kind of open and free for any questions on any subject at this point. Some things to look out for in the next week is I'm going to be uploading an all about the bass oboe video, where I will kind of edit down stuff from Mikey's live stream on Sunday and do a lot more in-depth commentary on it. I also was able to, the very next day we went into Dallas and we were able to get a side-by-side between the bass oboe and a tenorune. So I have video. I know some people wondered, well, okay, what about the bass oboe? It sounded like next to a tenorune. I got that the very next day. So it was an interesting sound, and we just played some scales and thirds. So I will include that in the video that I release. It'll probably be about a 20-minute video. It's going to take some while to edit. And yeah, I will try and have a little bit better production quality on that. Let's see what else. Yeah, I've got videos I'm going to be doing on the E-flat flute and the G treble flute. And then after that, it's going to be kind of open as to what's the next instrument I'll tackle. Tried alto clarinet for the first time today. It was awesome. Yeah, they're good instruments. Band directors just need to get that stick out of their ass about the thing. I was able to try it. My friend Matt Banks and I met up, and he met us with Mikey. And he has his brand new Buffet Prestige alto clarinet, and I played that thing, and it is just an absolute dream to play. Jared, you would have loved it. It's got a vent on the bell, so that the low E flat vents out of a separate tone hole. And Matt said that he can cover that up and he can play a low D on it. I know you write about band orchestration, but haven't heard many of your thoughts on brass. So I've got a question about it. Well, I've got answers because the brass book, it should be coming out soon. The brass book is done. I am just got to get the last couple photos in. And I'm just waiting on somebody to send me some final photos so I can get them in the book. I recently purchased a Kohler & Sons E-flat clarinet with a fork fingering for E-flat, B-flat for $40 on eBay. I think it was referred to as a full Böhm system, but plays wonderfully. Yeah, some of the old Kohlerts can be good instruments. Would you ever 3D print instruments if you had access to a 3D printer? Yes, I would. In fact, I was been thinking about that quite a bit since Mikey was here, and I'm kind of liking this idea of the bass oboe, a true bass oboe. Probably start off with an F instrument first, kind of like a bass English horn. Start printing that. Sans the Skeleton, are you guys got here? I'm assuming it's the treble and soprano flutes. Yes, indeed, here they are. Treble and soprano. I can play a little bit on them. Maybe I can't because I suck at flute. So going from clarinet to flute, not a good double. I just learned that now. Also, the Guo G treble just kind of sucks. It's not easy to play. Okay. Band Nerd Hangouts about brass at some point. Next week we'll get into brass. Trust me. I'm sympathetic to the argument that alto horns, assuming modern instruments on the 50s, 60s, peck horns would be good in school bands to take the pressure off the horns and balancing what do. And then you just... Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, Jared and Richard here. Hi, guys. So I'm going to assume you meant to say, what do you think? Yeah, if an alto / tenor horn and a horn need to have separate, fundamentally distinct parts for, yeah, they could work. I know of a single piece that uses both. Of course, it's my Symphony 2. Jinx. Do you know anything about writing for E-flat alto horn? Lots. Someone at my school is making a sax horn quintet and asked me to write a short piece for it. Okay, interesting. Sax horn. I have a video that I recorded on sax horns, and it's ready to go, but I'm gonna redo it. Sax horns are like the biggest kettle of fish, and surprise, 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 the alto horn is not a sax horn. Spoilers. Please, what a coincidence. Please make a contrabass oboe. Yeah, if I ever get the time and the design skills and a 3D printer, I may just do that. I have an evil plan to try 3D printing an octave oboe just to see how horrible it would be, and if it could actually play a written high F. So yeah, I was talking with Mikey about that some. He has some experience playing the E-flat sopranino oboe, and he said he could get out at least G's on it. A's might have been a bit of a struggle, but he could do it. There's a guy in the flute Discord with a Guo bass flute like that treble. It's weird. Yeah, I understand it with the bass. It's so much lighter. I mean, this thing is an absolute featherweight compared to... I mean, it's like half the weight. What is going on? That is just bizarre. One of the keys just moved. It's like it's on a pivot. That's just poor design. Come on, Guo, what are you doing? Proper piccolo oboe. Proper piccolo oboe would be preposterous. I purport that such an instrument won't be able to play any higher than a regular oboe. I would make a semi-contrabassoon like a small contrabassoon instead of an oversized bassoon. Honestly, Helicopter, you want the instrument to have as few bends as possible. So making it closer in shape to a bassoon is really a much better way to go. It would be much easier to machine. It would be much easier to design. And there's more precedence for that. If you made it in a contrabassoon-like shape, there's a lot of engineering involved. And and I don't think it would be nearly as practical. I would much, and Richard could. Well, yeah, it says the man who made a Giga Racket. But and maybe Richard can back me up here. Maybe something like if you want to curve the bell downwards, to just make it be a little shorter, but good. We need more preposterous experiments. Yeah. So Richard, I'll tell you this. I was at Vocal Majority, the local double reed store on Monday, and basically, I don't know if you know Jennifer Auerbach. She runs the Vocal Majority, and she just basically wanted to get you, me, Mikey, Matt Banks, and Richard Meek all in the same room and just watch what happens. Because you never told me Richard Meek owns a Heckle phone, and I did not know that. I like a smaller contrabass sound better. How do you know? It's helicopter. There's kind of no way for you to know that. Jared, if I weren't so dirt poor, I would finish a low C alto. Right now, I don't have the means or the funds to do it. I mean, I have designed in CAD a 3D model of an extension, but we'll see. Yeah, we have a double reed store. I walked in when I was there Monday. They had 7 contrabassoons in one room. Actually, in one closet. There's something you don't see every day. So it's like, hey, Mikey, look, 7 contrabassoons in one spot. Bends, especially tight bends like on bassoon, cause issues with tuning across different registers. Yeah, you want, like I said, you want as few bends as possible. And actually, Richard, one of the other repair stores, David's Instrument Repair, who's lent me the 2 small flutes here, just got in a Tenorune last week, and he is such a good repair tech that what he's going to do is he's going to cut off the bottom where the U-tube is, or where a U-tube should be on the tenor bassoon, where it's just 2 cork plugs, and he's going to actually manufacture a true U-tube to try and fix some of the acoustical problems on it. I actually agree with both of you. I believe Bret is correct that a contrabassoon shaped bassoon or a semi-contrabassoon would be worse, but I also wanted to try it. It reminds me, pointing to bends, the bends issue last week made me wonder, impractical as they are, would Herald trumpets and straightened brass play any better? I've never known anyone with a Herald trumpet. As long as the bends are wide enough, and trumpet bends are plenty wide enough, they're fine. It's fine. It's just the bend in a trumpet's not going to impede your airflow. Herald trumpets are just about the looks. Any sarusophones? No, David does not have any sarusophones. Richard Meek has one. I pitched a contrabassoon up a 4th and then pitched a bassoon down a 5th. The smaller contrabassoon sounds a lot more metallic than the other. Well, you don't really want metallic. You want much richer sound. I would not want a metallic sound at all. I'm currently in possession of my school's curved head joint alto. The curves make everything from written D6 and up incredibly sharp, make me use weird harmonics for it. Yeah, and that's one of the problems with the curved head joint altos is that they do have some more intonation issues. Upsampling and downsampling is a rough approximation of how acoustic instruments will behave. Yes. Do you think the contrabass sarrusophone could make a comeback? No, not right now. Not until somebody manufactures them on a reliable basis where they don't cost like 40 grand or whatever Eppelsheim cost for their custom-made instruments. There are plenty of older cons out there, but as of right now, I don't foresee, except for specialty stuff, sourcephones making any kind of comeback, barring the Chinese getting in on that action. And this is said, the Chinese could do it because, they've done ophiclides. So how much crazier would it be to do a sousaphone? Not much. As for the sub-contribution, I just finished reprinting the largest 8 body joints bell and bends in ABS, so progress. So you now have 2 bodies, Richard. Okay. Did the ABS work better than the first stuff you were using? I can't remember what the first stuff was. I remember you saying that your initial work with the ABS wasn't great, but it seems like you've kind of fixed the problems there. Aster, I'm going to assume you mean a sousaphone. 12,000 would sound about right. It would probably be, it sounds like something probably from like Quinn the Eskimo on eBay. Yeah, Richard, send pictures or post them to. Yes, I know about the contrabass at Anche. Do you see Iwi's joining, making an appearance in wind bands? Sure, why not? I don't see why they couldn't. If I would, I would not use them really to replace traditional instruments. I would use them to add to. That reminds me, I still need to do the next video in rethinking the wind band. Maybe I'll do that this week or within the next week. The high frequencies will be not accurate, but the low ones not too different. Like what I said in one of Jared's streams about pitching the bass clarinet to make an alto. Yeah, but it's the high harmonics there that give an instrument its tone quality, not the low harmonics. And so, yeah, the higher harmonic spectrum is where tone color comes in. ABS is lighter, stronger, and can be chemically bonded. It's just a lot more difficult to print. Richard, what's the weight difference between the first print and the second print? I'd be curious to know. Who is my favorite composer? Kind of like asking somebody who their favorite child is. What did you use as a wall thickness when printing? Oh, that's for Richard. I started playing EV last year. It depends heavily on choice of sonic textures. They're just MIDI controllers. Yeah. So Connie flat contrabass seller is oboes.us. Okay, so that's being sold by Peter Hurd. I talked to Peter yesterday. So I talked to the owner then. I was asking him some questions about bass oboe literature. I should make a video about them. I don't know what them is. Jared, I use a 6.5 millimeter for the wall thickness. Was 1/4 inch, but inches, ew. Yeah, okay, yeah, I agree, Richard. Inches, ew. Why can't we just go to metric? God, inches are so stupid. 12 inches make up a foot. 3 feet make up a yard. 5,280 feet make up a mile. Okay, that makes as much sense as British money pre-decimalization. ABS printed joints will weigh slightly less than a maple joint and 80% of PLE. PLA. That's a substantial reduction if it's 80%. If it's 20% lighter. I think my sister's oboe teacher knows Peter. Yeah, Peter's pretty well known. He's one of the bass oboe heckelphone experts here in the U.S. Most of my favorite EV playing has been with analog or virtual analog synth, So blatantly synthetic, but easily blendable. Um, I don't. I have literally no experience with um, Iwis. I just don't know. I've never heard them called an EVI. Always Iwi. We tried something around the 1960s or so, but decided it would be too expensive to change all the signs. I was later than that. I was into the 70s, I think, and if Jimmy Carter had been elected in the second term, we would have been on the metric system. Damn you, Ronald Reagan. Um, 1/10,000th. Look, it's the metric system. Yeah, 10,000's easy. Or 1,000th. All right, let's see. So I've been gone a little bit over an hour. We have any other questions tonight? So, like I said, I'll get a big kind of edited down bass oboe video up in the next few days. That's going to take a while. Electronic valve instrument. Okay. That just sounds silly. It's got to have, like, how many octave keys on it? Okay. Iwi is an Akai trademark. Okay. What about higher pitches, saxophones? What about them? I mean, sopranino is really about as high as you need to go. There doesn't need to be anything higher than piccolo sax. You're right, because the reed just physically cannot vibrate any higher. There's an acoustical cutoff on reed instruments right at the top of the range of the sopranino sax. So, I was playing sopranino the other day. I was borrowing a curved one, and I could get a high G on it, which is a sounding B flat. A is doable, but you can't really go much above that. So there's just that acoustical cutoff of reeds that they're just not going to play any higher than about sounding C7. The only wind instruments that can go up there will be flutes. What brass instruments will you do next week? Okay, well that's kind of an open question. What brass instruments should I cover next week? I mean, so I'll be open to kind of talk there. Why not horns go in score order? Yeah, I think horns would probably be the natural way to go. Do horns, Wagner tuba. Yeah, I think horns would be good. And then maybe cornets the week after. So, yeah, it should be fun. Why not some double reed instruments that have an enclosed double reeds? This is crum horns and bagpipes. What about do a video covering them? Maybe. Richard, even the soprano only goes up to E flat, and that's with the second octave vent on the mouthpiece. Yeah, and that E flat is going to sound a D flat, which is right at that acoustical cutoff. There's a few different good octave switching mechanisms, and it's just a P5 key on top of that. Of course, it's the same in every octave. Not following harmonic partials. Yeah, I get why that puts some off. Serpents, cornets, ophicleides, keyed bugles. Besides tenor trombone, do you have any other brass instruments? I have a old cornet. There's a trumpet over there. They're wall hangers, though. I mean, I just don't. I don't play brass well. I used to have a pretty good horn. But I needed rent money one month and sold it. What should the score order be? Trumpets above horns or horns above trumpets? What's the function? In orchestra, it's always horns at the top of the brass section. in all my band writing, I put horns at the top. It really depends on function, and there's a whole big section of that in Volume 3, which is coming out soon. Where would you put the chimbasso? In the trumpet video, trombone, both? Chimbasso's interesting. In Volume 3 of Band Orchestration, it has its own separate chapter because it's almost always going to be played by a tuba player, even though it functions more like a trombone, and in some regards is also a trumpet. So it's kind of a hybrid of all three. We might do a miscellaneous brass one. In my opinion, horns, cornets, trumpets, trombones, tubas. That's the order I tend to go in. Are trumpets and trombones both equally cylindrical? I would say, on the whole, trombones tend to be more cylindrical than trumpets. Theoretically, they should be about the same, but just because of construction methods, trumpets will have a little bit more conicity to them. I'd like to get a brass instrument just for fun, really. My first in 25 years, I'm actually considering a mellophone marching French horn. Do I know anything about the contrabass trombone? I know lots about it. Mellophone, if anything, should be adopted as an alto tuba of sorts. I talk about that in the book too, and I was actually able to get my hands on an actual alto tuba. So I actually have alto tuba photo in the book. Where does ophicleide go in score order when there are tubas? So the only time we see ophicleides and tubas are in Berlioz's later works. Ophicleide is on top, tuba is on bottom. So 3 trombones, ophicleide, tuba. And that's just kind of how Berlioz did it. I've never seen an alto flugelhorn that Bret's mentioned on his old website. They're out there. They are rare, but they are out there. Essentially, though, it's an alto flugelhorn is a mellophone. And I talked to Jack Canstall about this. The only difference between an alto flugelhorn, and a mellophone is the size of the bell. The bell of the mellophone is 10 inches, whereas the bell of the alto flugelhorn is 8. Otherwise, the whole body are the same. And they actually produced, before they shut business. Yeah, I sport alto horn, but a well-made mellophone is just a good front-facing alto. Canstall used to sell the same instrument with 2 cosmetic bell sizes. Yeah, and that's the instrument I talked to Jack Canstall about. And he confirmed that they are exactly the same instrument, just with different bell sizes. And the alto with the smaller bell is much more warm in sound. Why are the partial notes of the trumpet flat but not on trombones, even on the same pitch? I'm not sure what you're where are the pedal tones on trumpet flat? Because the bore of the instrument is not big enough to produce them. Trumpets really should not be really fully capable with their design to play the pedal notes. There's the idea of whole tube and half tube instruments. The half tube instruments are instruments that can't play their pedal notes, whereas whole tube instruments can. Even the old trumpets, the old like big F trumpets, really almost couldn't even play the second partial. Every horn player I've ever met despises mellophone because it gets treated like a horn. If it gets treated like an instrument that it is, it could be a viable thing. I probably picked that up from you a few years ago. Yeah. So is a mellophone an alto sousaphone? Well, no, because sousaphone is defined by its shape more than by what it is. So people have made smaller sousaphones. What's fascinating is when I was getting the trombone and some of the weird tuba photos for the book, I was talking with the guy who owned all the instruments, tell me that UTA, my alma mater, has a brand new Con E flat sousaphone. And I say brand new. It is literally sitting in the box it was shipped in 80 years ago in absolutely immaculate, perfect condition. Oops, I meant soprano trombone and B-flat trumpet. Theoretically, both the soprano trombone and the B-flat trumpet, neither one should be able to play their pedal tones. Yeah, like Transformer tenor sousaphone. Yeah, that thing was just terrible. Front-facing horn is just more fun than sax horn euphonium configuration for something in the alto register. So something I want to do is collaborate with a brass company in creating what would be essentially an alto euphonium. The bore shape and profile of a euphonium, but pitched in the alto range, either in E flat or F. Theoretically, F would probably be a better solution there. Make sure you have it with 4 compensating valves, so it goes all the way down into the pedal range. And I think it could be a fascinating and workable instrument. And I've already reached out to one instrument company, and I had some positive feedback from them. But we'll see. Hi, Lumi. Is there a total difference between the tuba, helicon, and sousaphone? Yes, but not anything that a composer should really be worrying about. They're different things for different functions. That said, I hear that perhaps between the helicon and the sousaphone, I hear that actually the helicon is probably a better instrument. I think we should bring back over-the-shoulder sax horns. Wessex has them. Wessex has made at least one over-the-shoulder sax horn. I have a photo of it where I saw it in person, so it's there. Would the pedals of bass trumpets work? All right, first off, helicopter. You keep writing petal, P-E-T-E-L. That's the leaf on a flower. It's pedal, P-E-D-A-L, like on the pedal board of an organ. And yeah, the pedal notes on the bass trumpet work just fine because the bore is big enough. It has to do with the proportion of the bore to the mouthpiece. Couldn't you just put a G bugle bell on a mellophone? Well, yeah, that's what the Kansas marching alto was. So if you look up, just type in like Kansas marching alto, you'll see the basically what is their mellophone with just a small normal proportion bell. I'd play alto euphonium as a double for jazz. Yeah, it'd be a perfect instrument. Part of the problem with mellows is they use either horned lead pipe adapters, which customize the instrument, or a strange mouthpiece for the player, also bad. There's some New Orleans traditional jazz helicon players out there in folk musics too. Yeah, and yeah. In fact, the tuba player that I got all the photos from for my book has helicon. He's actually working with Wessex to develop a C helicon with 4 valves. So yeah, sweeter than anything. Back to mellophones absolutely have to have the actual mellophone mouthpiece to make them sound right. Is the slightly taller flute a B foot or a B flat? It's a C flute. It is a regular C flute. The smaller one you see here is an E flat flute. Have you seen the video of the guy playing first suite in E flat with euphoniums and ocarinas? It's probably the coolest thing ever. I have not. That just sounds weird. Podcast videos on the subcontrabass with Richard. You have a typo in the address bar. It says sub. Well, I can't change the typo in the address. Okay, helicopter. I have literally not been to that website. Probably really since the last episode uploaded. So I've kind of abandoned the podcast for now, and I'm not doing a lot with that. Also pointing out somebody. So, yeah. Maybe I'll go back and fix it, but at this point, that's kind of a dead area. But yeah, I'm putting more of the focus in on YouTube now because YouTube monetizes a lot better. Speaking of which, I'm thinking about restructuring and basically starting a whole new Patreon for a monthly thing to help support like the videos and the live streams and that kind of stuff. So I'm still kind of toying with that idea of what I do, and in that I know somebody has mentioned wanting to do a Discord server, so Patreon members would get access to a Discord server. We can just talk about this kind of stuff all day long if you want. There are decent instruments with native horn lead pipes, though it's still not the best mouthpiece for a half-length instrument. There does need to be a real solution for horn players. Yeah, the B-flat marching horn is probably the best solution. Do you have any plans to port over content from your old website to your current one? No. The old Bandistration website is pretty much dead right now. All that information has gone into the books. Now, some of the information from the website, from the book, from the website went directly into Volume 2 because the Woodwind articles I found were a little bit better written, but most of them were just completely revamped and completely rewritten, and everything for Volume 3 is completely new. And so, for the time being, the Bandistration website will stay up, but all the effort has gone into the books. So that's basically where the repository of all that information is. That explains why you turned the comments off on that. I turned the comments off on the Bandistration site. How much are the books? Volume 1 for a print book is $50. Volume 2 is $60. And you can pre-order Volume 3 right now for $50, but it'll probably go up to $55 when it's live on my website. So you can just go to bretnewtoncomposer.com and you can order them there. Or there's a link on there on my website to the GoFundMe where you can pre-order Volume 3. And as of right now, Volume 3 should be out very, very soon. I'm just waiting on the final photos to come in, and I'm going to have to pester the guy who's supposed to get them to me one more time. He should probably be up by now. He's in Australia. Oh, Richard, you want to get me, do you think you can get me some, like, serpent and sackbut photos? That would be fantastic if you're still in the room. But I could put those in. But I'd love to get more photos, but at this point, it's become so difficult to get some of the instrument photos that I'm just gonna have to get it on there. Helicopter. I took down a lot of older videos on the YouTube channel They're still there. They're just kind of hidden. Um, Mostly because there was a time when I was getting a bunch of haters out there that I just didn't want to deal with it. So I took a bunch of them down. There's a lot that just were not good quality. And still, there's quite a few on my channel that are not good quality. From personal experience, I think it's far easier to move from flute to single reeds and vice versa. Yeah, that's... Hey, Richard, if you want to get some decent photos of the serpent lizard and the mute cornet, I would be most appreciative. You can have photos in both volumes. I have a lizard, but it's a gecko that lives in my bathroom that I wake up every morning, turn on the light, and I have a lizard that scatters. He's cool. I'm going to name him Stuart. Yep, he's named Stuart now. Anyway, guys, if we don't have any other questions for the night, this has been fun. Been an hour. I may have access to sack butts. Hey, Tony, if you could get me some photos of sack butts within like the next couple days, because that's about kind of my time frame. I'd like to have the book to the printer by Monday. And if I could do that, I would be so happy, and I could probably means I'd have a print copy in my hand maybe by the end of next week. I don't think it would be a good idea to play Your Lizard. No. Thanks for your thoughts and indulging mine. Have a good evening, everyone. Yep. Thanks, guys. The coffee is cold and empty. Well, cold, not quite empty. Sure, I'll see if I can get some for you tomorrow. Excellent. Tony, do you have my email address? You can find me on Facebook. That would be probably the easiest, and I can send it to you. Or I think my email address is directly on my website. So if you want to get a hold of me that way. But it's brett.newton99@gmail.com. Is the contrabass sackbut in the book? I may mention it very briefly in the chapter on the contrabass trombone, but I don't spend a lot of time on the sackbuts other than talk about them historically in the trombone chapter. I do cover all the ophiclides though. I even have photos of a B flat bass and an E flat contrabass. I know I've got a friend in the area who has a C bass. I'd love to get like my B flat bass next to his C bass to kind of do a compare contrast. All right. So, guys, I am about done for tonight. I think my girlfriend has been trying to message me the whole time, so I probably should indulge her. So, anyway, guys, thanks. It's been fun. We'll do it about the same time next week, and we'll start in on the brass. Horns and Wagner Tuban. All right, guys.